Hello and welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. The Tour de France has reached its final rest day and an iconic rivalry is brewing. Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard. Who will win the yellow jersey? We'll discuss that as well as various other stories around the Tour de France. That and more on this week's Racing News Show. This week in the world of racing, we learnt that Tony Galopin will retire at the end of the season, which gave Giulio Ciccone the perfect chance to serenade his teammate. Ever wondered what riders and directors talk about all day on the team radio? Well, we also learnt that it's not always quite what you'd expect.
Okay guys, now we do plan C. Everybody jump the tiger. When the crocodile starts to swim, you jump.
And we learnt that Marc Soler was feeling particularly generous on stage 14. In all seriousness, the sweltering temperatures mean teams have been helping each other stay hydrated, which is of course lovely to see. And finally, we learnt that the Tadej Pogačar-Jonas Vingegaard rivalry is becoming truly legendary. And when I use that word, legendary, I really mean it. Only once before had the same two riders finish 1-2 at the Tour de France, 3 times. It's never happened 3 years in a row either. And well, Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard are well on their way to achieving that particular feat for the very first time. There's just 10 seconds between them and they're more than 5 minutes ahead of anyone else. They really are in a different league. So, how did we get here? The gap on the previous rest day was just 17 seconds and the week was building to a big GC triple header. The first came on stage 13 and the Grand Colombier. This mountain was used for the first time at the Tour de France in 2020 and Pogačar was the winner that day. A large breakaway went away this time and although UAE controlled all day, they began the climb with almost 4 minutes. After a flat start to the stage, the breakaway was largely made up of strong rouleurs rather than small climbers. Among them, Michał Kwiatkowski. He didn't follow early accelerations and paced his effort to perfection, using what he called maybe the best legs of his life to hold off the peloton and win the second Tour de France stage of his career. Behind, UAE continued to set a hard tempo on the climb, but when would the Pogačar attack arrive? Well, finally, Pogačar delivered a huge acceleration with 450 metres to go. He distanced Jonas Vingegaard and raced to third on the stage, also finishing behind Maxime van Gils from the breakaway. Tadej put 4 seconds into Vingegaard, and in addition to the 4 bonus seconds at the line, the gap was almost halved to just 9 seconds. It was Bastille Day, a national day of celebration in France, and the best placed French rider was David Gaudu, all the way down in 16th place. One of the 3 French riders who did make their way into that breakaway was Pierre Latour. On paper, he is one of the better climbers in the group, but his chances disappeared on the Col de la Leb, where he was distanced on the descent very quickly by the rest of the breakaway. Latour is known for being one of the most nervous descenders in the entire peloton. He's had numerous fractures in the past which have been caused by crashes on the descent. In an interview with La Parisienne, he said that he's tried everything: psychoanalysis, mental coaching and even hypnosis. Yet, in his words, when he's descending, his forearms feel like they weigh 50 kilos each and he's completely paralysed. I found that brutal yet honest interview from Latour captivating. We often think of these riders as supermen or gladiators even with what they put themselves through over a 3-week race, but they are in fact human beings just like the rest of us. Anyway, back to the Vingegaard-Pogačar battle. Stage 14, and this time it was Jumbo-Visma's day to set tempo on the front. Christophe Laporte in particular deserves a huge shout out here for the work he did. He was on the front for what seemed like forever. A breakaway featuring the likes of Giulio Ciccone and Mikel Landa tried their luck, but their hopes were ended by the Jumbo-Visma killer bees. Sepp Kuss had whittled the group down to just 5 riders on the final ascent of the day, the Col de Joux-Plane. Jai Hindley and Felix Gall were dropped, and then this happened. Pogačar gives Adam Yates the nod and they charged to the front to make it just Yates, Pogačar and Vingegaard. The stage was quickly becoming a classic when Pogačar attacked with 3.7 kilometres left. Another big attack and Vingegaard couldn't follow. This time though, Jonas stayed cool and worked hard to reel in Pogačar a few kilometres later. A stalemate. Now, crucially, there were 8, 5 and 2 bonus seconds at the top of the climb before descending to the finish in Morzine. And when Pogačar tried to attack, this happened. Impeded by a motorbike and having to back off instantly. In hindsight, there probably should have been barriers here to make space for the motos and riders in the final of that climb, particularly as there were bonus seconds at the top. That would be the case with a mountaintop finish as well. Anyway, Vingegaard managed to get the jump on Pogačar over the top of the climb to claw 3 crucial seconds back. With the dominant duo looking at each other, Carlos Rodriguez and Adam Yates clawed their way back to the group. Here, Rodriguez both pushed the limits and demonstrated his descending prowess to win the stage, his first at Grand Tour. With Jai Hindley losing almost 2 minutes behind, Rodriguez moved onto the podium as well. Closely behind, Pogačar outsprinted Vingegaard for second and third on the stage, meaning overall the gap moved out from 9 to 10 seconds. So, onto the final Alpine stage of the week. A breakaway went early, and this time they were allowed to compete for the stage. A monster group of 38 riders were clear. Wout van Aert, Marc Soler and Wout Poels gapped the rest before the final climb of the day. And there, Wout Poels quickly made the difference en route to Saint-Gervais-Mont Blanc to win the stage. Incredibly, that's Poels' first victory at any Grand Tour. This is the 35-year-old's 21st Grand Tour start, so needless to say, a hugely popular winner. Here's what he had to say at the finish line.
I always dream to win a stage when you're young in the Tour, and especially all what happened in the team the last 3 weeks with Gino. I mean, all the emotions come then, but it's just incredible to win the stage. It was almost my dream. I won our monument, I won a stage in the Tour. I mean, I'm super happy. Behind,
though, the GC battle was heating up. Adam Yates accelerated, and only Pogačar and Vingegaard could follow. Intriguingly, Pogačar let Yates' wheel go. Was he struggling? Was he planning to bridge to Yates later? Should Vingegaard attack? Well, the big Pogačar attack did arrive as the leaders went under the Flamme Rouge. But Vingegaard was glued to his wheel. Even though it was briefly 3 versus 1 as Soler dropped back from the breakaway to help his leaders, Vingegaard matched every single pedal stroke. He even rounded Pogačar on the outside of the final corner before the two protagonists rolled across the line together, ending a thrilling triple header of GC Racing. And what an image that was, the two dominant riders side by side, almost in a show of respect for each other. There's almost been nothing between them this week. And well, if Tadej Pogačar's socials are to be believed, they're going to be spending their rest day sipping a cappuccino with one another as well. With almost nothing to split them both on the road and on the timesheet, the big question, who is going to win the yellow jersey? Let us know in the comments, who is your pick to win the Tour de France and why? Further down in the GC, a duel between Carlos Rodriguez and Adam Yates is forming for the final place on the podium. They're at 5 minutes 21 and 5 minutes 40 respectively. And although Jai Hindley is still close at 6 minutes 38, he has been leaking time this week, which may be down to a crash on stage 14. And speaking of crashes, we have seen too many over the past week. Not nice to see, particularly those caused by fans. A spectator seemingly trying to take a selfie brought down Sepp Kuss and affected a huge number of riders on stage 15. This isn't the first fan-related incident of the race either, so if you're heading to the Tour de France, be sure to respect the riders and give them space on the road, while, of course, enjoying the race. Earlier in the week, we had 2 compelling breakaway stages. I absolutely love watching these stages unfold. The stage profiles often combine hills and medium mountains and a section of flat before the finish line. Too hard for the sprinters and too easy for the GC favourites to make a difference, which often means an absurd number of riders aim to join the breakaway. And watching that fight to join the breakaway is thrilling. It really is a treat to watch these stages from start to finish, seeing the group's dynamics unfold and showing just how difficult it is to join the breakaway at the Tour de France, let alone win from the group. Stage 10 finished in Issoire, and it was one of those gargantuan breakaway brawls from the flag drop. Ultimately, 14 riders went clear, including Julian Alaphilippe, Matthias Skjelmoser, Ben O'Connor, and the best placed on the GC, Pao Bilbao. He started the day 11th, 7.5 minutes down. Chris Nealand's long-range attack was reeled in by a group of the strongest chasers. He was caught with 3 kilometres to go after being solo for almost 30 kilometres. And so, a reduced sprint, and the strongest in that scenario was Pao Bilbao. The Basque rider went ahead of Georg Zimmermann to claim the first Tour de France stage of his career, and shoots all the way up to 5th in the GC. Not a bad day's work. He's since dropped to 7th overall, but he's well on his way to securing a top 10 placing. By winning the stage, Bilbao finished ahead of 168 riders. He's donating €1 to a reforestation charity for every rider he finishes ahead of on every stage. The idea comes from his late teammate Gino Mader. A wonderful tribute from Peo, who got on very well with Mader. So well, in fact, that Mader named his dog after his teammate. Bilbao made a touching tribute at the finish line. Here's what he said.
It was hard to prepare the last 2 weeks with him in the mind. But yeah, same with the family at home and same with my kid Martina. She helped me a lot to just keep calm, be positive and put all my positive energy to try to do something nice in the Tour.
Stage 12 to Belleville-en-Beaujolais wasn't too dissimilar, with 15 riders joining the breakaway. In that group, Thibaut Pinot and Guillaume Martin were the main beneficiaries in the GC, both gaining 5 places by the end of the day. Mathieu van der Poel was there too. He attacked early and then tried everything to push his advantage out further in the descents. He was caught and then dropped on the Col de la Croix-Rosière though, and the man who was the strongest, Jon Izagirre. He had a decent lead over the top of the climb after attacking and managed to extend that gap in the descent and rolling run into the line to win his second Tour de France stage, 7 years after his first. What a tour it's been for Kofdist after a long 15-year spell without victory at the Tour de France to arrive in 1 year. Mathieu Bergeret was second, with Matteo Jorgensen in third. Stage 11 was the only chance for the sprinters this week, and his nickname is Jasper Disaster. But that needs to change, because Jasper has been the master of the Tour de France sprints. He won comfortably ahead of Dylan Groenewegen, with Phil Bauhaus also in the top 3 for the 3rd time at the race. Philipsen has collected 323 green jersey points so far, and has all but sewn up that particular competition with a 144-point lead on Mads Pedersen in second. The polka dot jersey contest is much closer though, and I'm absolutely loving the evolution of that particular battle. Giulio Ciccone joined the party this week, making his intentions very clear with numerous, huge sprints for the KOM points. He's on 58 points now, alongside Neilson Paulus, while Jonas Vingegaard, Tadej Pogačar and Wout van Aert are all within 11 points. A truly great battle, so let us know in the comments, who do you think will come out on top and win the polka dot jersey? And there is plenty of exciting action coming up this week. 3 big days in the GC, the time trial on Tuesday, a huge mountain test featuring the Col de la Loze on Wednesday, and the final mountain stage on Saturday. Some other chances for the sprinters and perhaps the breakaway specialists too. You can watch it all live and on demand on GCN+, or if you can't watch it live, choose from our array of highlights packages. You don't want to miss this week, it is going to be absolutely epic. We also have our exclusive World of Cycling show available now on GCN+. Cy Richardson is in the studio to analyse the state of play at the Tour de France with studio guests Pippa York and Danny Christmas. If you simply cannot get enough, and I wouldn't blame you, of the Tour de France, check out our Tour de France documentary collection on GCN+. That includes our brand new documentary out this week, and I've been buzzing for this one. Super Team's La Vie Claire. Despite a ferocious internal power struggle between 2 of the sport's biggest stars, La Vie Claire racked up more than 100 wins in the mid-1980s. Take a look at this.
La Vie Claire, a cycling team beyond compare. The best riders, the best technology, the best jersey. For 4 years in the 1980s, they were untouchable, dominating the biggest races in the world. How did a team with a controversial owner,
France's true first entrepreneur. I don't think he got there honestly. I think he did some fraudulent type of stuff.
plagued by a ferocious internal power struggle,
I can't imagine how that works when somebody's smiling at you and eating their cornflakes in the morning. And then you go and do the bike race and he tries to kill you.
changed the face of cycling forever.
They brought cycling from being this small-time sport to this massive multi-million-pound extravaganza.
This is the story of the world's first modern super team. This is La Vie Claire.
What a jersey that was, eh? But the Tour de France does not finish on Sunday because the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift kicks off on the same day. The first stage begins and ends in Clermont-Ferrand. Could be a GC day or could be one for the sprinters. And of course, the yellow jersey is on the line. That's going to be a stellar watch, and I'm really intrigued by this race as a whole. It's being billed as Demi Vollering versus Annemiek van Vleuten, and I, for one, simply cannot call it. So make sure you tune in for that on Sunday before turning over to the conclusion of the men's race on Champs-Élysées. The Baloise Ladies Tour has also taken place this week. It was the Charlotte Kool show as well, at least at first, because the Dutch woman won the opening prologue, edging out Lucinda Brand, before winning the next 3 sprint stages. I'm very excited to see how she fares against her old teammate Lorena Wiebes at the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. A new GC form though after the 17km time trial, with Lucinda Brand winning the stage and taking the leader's jersey, with Anna Henderson and Emma Norsgaard second and third. Movistar's Jelena Eric won the final stage, with Brand securing overall victory. Kool did go home before the final stage, with her team citing symptoms of sickness, so let's hope it was just precautionary and she is indeed on top form for the TDFF. Dan Lloyd once finished second overall at the Tour of Kinhai Lake, so we're forced to cover it. No, joking aside, Henoch Moulebrand won the GC despite finishing on the same time as Eric Fagundes. Timothy Dupont, Attio Viviani and Frank Vandenbroek were among the riders to win a stage there. In other news, Remco Evenepoel supposedly wants out of his Soudal Quick-Step contract, even though his contract does run until 2026. Israel Premier Tech and the Ineos Grenadiers are rumoured to be leading the chase to sign him, but we'll see how that one unfolds. Caleb Ewan abandoned the Tour de France on stage 13. He'd been last to finish the day before and was dropped early on the stage. That led Lotto Destiny manager Stefan Ulo to sensationally say to L'Equipe that he regrets sacrificing so many riders for Ewan. Responding to that, Ewan's agent Jason Bakker told Cycling Weekly that he believes Ulo's comments were disgusting and he owes Ewan an apology. The Aussie sprinter wasn't the only rider to come under fire publicly this week though. Israel Premier Tech manager Sylvain Adams told Cycling Weekly that he believed Chris Froome was absolutely not value for money. Ashley Moulmoon-Passio has signed a contract extension with AG Insurance Soudal Quick-Step until the end of 2024. She'd originally planned to retire at the end of the 2022 season, but her good form this year has encouraged her to extend her racing career once more. And on the other end of his career, 20-year-old Luke Lamperti has signed a 2-year deal with Soudal Quick-Step. He'll step up from Trinity Racing after winning a stage of the Giro Next Gen this year. Following their strong rides on stage 10 of the Tour de France, both Pao Bilbao and Chris Neerlands received long-term contract extensions with their current teams, meaning they'll stay with Bahrain and Israel respectively until 2026. Meanwhile, GCN Racing editor Daniel Benson has reported that Remy Cavagna will be leaving Soudal Quick-Step at the end of the season. Patrick Conrad will be leaving Bora Hansgrohe, while Geraint Thomas is on the brink of signing a 2-year contract extension with the Ineos Grenadiers. Taylor Wiles has been forced to retire due to ongoing effects of external iliac artery endofibrosis. She had planned to retire at the end of the year, but she's been forced to bring her plans forward after symptoms have persisted. Okay, that's all we have time for this week. Enjoy your racing, and we'll see you at the same time on next week's show. Goodbye for now.